day 4 of week 1 of James. I'll be starting from James 1:26. If anyone thinks himself to be religious, yet does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his own heart, this person's religion is worthless. Pure and undefiled religion in the sight of our God and Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. Hey gang, I'm going to show you something really cool that you can do, and I found it really helpful on this text. So I think this is a good day to show you. What I'm going to show you is how you can look at the original language online. So we're actually going to do this straight from the Colored Carnations website, and we're in James. So we're going to go to the James Starter Kit, and we're just going to scroll down here. There's instructions, there's the James reading plan, James printable text. That's what we want right there. Okay, so there's our text. We're going to go to today's reading. I'm going to make this a little bigger so you can see it. Let's do this, not 100%, but fit. There, that's a little better. Okay, so let's find our spot. That's from yesterday. Okay, here it is. This is today's reading. So this is what's kind of cool. Let's look at this verse 26. If you hover on that or click on that, you get a link here that will take you to the Bible Hub. I'm going to click on the link, and that brings me just to verse James 1:26. You see along the left side here, it has that verse listed in every version possible. Just kidding. I'm sure it's not every version possible. It's a lot of versions. Then over here, this is the really cool part. Hearing and doing context. Okay, see the context header? Now, if I bring my cursor and I hover, maybe if I get a little closer, you can read better. And I hover, it brings up the meaning in the original language. So let's hover over one. Anyone thinks himself religious. This is interesting. So what did they mean by religious? Probably from the base thoreo, meaning ceremonious in worship. So they meant ceremonious in worship. But does not bridle his tongue. To bridle, curb, restrain, sway. And it says a little bit more about the roots there. He deceives his heart and his religion. There's religion again. Let's see if we get the same thing. Ceremonial observance. The other one said ceremonial worship, so there's a slight difference there. Is worthless. So that says vain, unreal, ineffectual, unproductive. Practically godless. Okay. And then okay, let's see here. I want to look at the next verse. So we just come up here and we arrow over for the next verse. Now we're at 127. So pure says clean, and undefiled says untainted, free from contamination, unsoiled. The example given is pure. Right, so it kind of repeats the other word. And here's that word religion again. Ceremonial observance. This was also interesting down here. Care for the orphans. Look at orphans. I found this very interesting. Bereaved. An orphan, fatherless, desolate, of uncertain affinity. Parentless. And then widows. Comes from through an idea of deficiency, literally or figuratively, a widow. Let's see, was there anything else I wanted to show you here about the words? So being polluted, unstained, undefiled, spotless, pure, unblemished. Okay, so I just kind of wanted to show you that. Now, instead of hovering, I could have actually clicked on any of those words, and then it takes me into a page that goes into, it has a lot more detail and mentions other verses in the Bible where it's used. So that's kind of cool. I just wanted to show you that because I found it really helpful today, and I thought you guys might like that for future use too. It's always available. It's very cool. Let's talk about bridling the tongue. Isn't it interesting that he uses this language about bridling the tongue again when just, was it just yesterday's section where he talked about being quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to become angry? So I feel like he's leaning back into that again. And when I think of this, I don't think that James is saying that you have to bridle your tongue, like just censor what you're saying, because Jesus talks about how what comes out of our mouth comes out of the overflow of our heart. So I think that when he's talking about bridling your tongue, he's talking about bridling your heart, because the tongue is the expression of what's inside of you. So you can't just stop. In fact, Jesus at one point, I can't remember the scripture reference off the top of my head, says that we will be judged by every careless word, which sounds really like almost ridiculously strict at first blush. But then when you think about it, it's like, but the careless word is what reveals the true heart. And Jesus is about our heart, not just about changing our external actions. So I don't think that James is talking about changing external actions here when he talks about bridling the tongue. I think he's talking about that, what we were talking about with hearing God and having that heart that's soft to God and hears and remembers and takes action on it, that the heart is shaped by that. That's what our heart is shaped by. So I thought that was kind of cool about that part. And when he talks about pure and undefiled religion coming from the expression of caring for, of course, the widows and the orphans, as I understand it, in their culture, would have been the people who were helpless, who could not protect themselves. And it says in their distress. And we saw that when we were looking at the words in the commentary. It was talking about that they are, what was the word that it used? I can't think of it now, but it's talking about how they really have been abandoned and that they're in a bad spot in life. So when I'm thinking about this in my own life, I am thinking about widows and orphans, but I'm also thinking more broadly, like, who in my life do I know who is in a situation of distress or in a situation who's unprotected and vulnerable? And looking at my own heart, like, what's happening in my heart over time? Am I becoming more sensitive to people who are in need, or am I becoming less? Like, that's where I think I'll be seeing the transformation in Jesus in my heart, is how my heart naturally reacts to those people, because as he comes more in me, I more naturally want to love people who are hurting and distressed and who really can't protect themselves. And so I think that's kind of beautiful that he says that. And then, of course, he talks about, and I think when he talks about being unstained by the world, he's talking about that purity of heart, of having Jesus and hearing that word that's been planted in our heart. And I just wanted to close with some of the adorations that came from my time of meditation. I just would like to say, praise you, Jesus, that your way is to care for the defenseless and those in distress, not just to please ourselves. And praise you that you change our hearts. We don't have to perform or act or fake it. Jesus, we love you and we praise you.